Haru was a lonely loser until he bagged the most popular girl in class. However, she turned out to be a freak who only wanted to taste his sausage, so he decided to give her his 6 inches of plot. Everything starts with Haru dreaming about his hot class rep named Akiho, who eagerly wants to show him her plots. Before he can get to the good part, he suddenly wakes up in class and realizes it was all a bizarre dream. He gets shy when he sees Akiho because he's been crushing on her for years, but he's never been able to talk to her because she's out of his league. However, now they are in the same class, so after school, he summons the courage to ask her out. To his shock, Akiho accepts his proposal, and she vows to be a good girlfriend since it's her first time. Everything seems good, but then she tells him she'll let him hit from behind every Saturday night, and it shocks Haru because he didn't expect Akiho to be that freaky.
You naughty.
The next day in class, Haru sits in school, excited that he's in a relationship with Akiho because now he will get to know more about her. Just then, Akiho shows up and asks him about his bedroom bucket list, which catches him off guard. Haru insists on changing the topic because he feels uncomfortable, but she insists because she wants to know him better. Haru then tells her he's good with basic stuff, but Akiho says she's been to a Diddy party and he'll need to do better than that. Later, the teacher asks Akiho to carry some books to her office, and Haru decides to help, thinking they'll be too heavy for her. Shockingly, Akiho thinks he's a masochist, so she starts humiliating him to make his little soldier rise. After they drop off the books, she starts calling him a pig, so he finally tells her that he's not a masochist. During lunch break, Haru decides to share his meal with Akiho, but finds her fixated on listening to a Bonnie Blue podcast on her phone. Akiho claims she's doing it to expand her knowledge for his sake, but when Haru listens to it, he realizes her knowledge wasn't the only thing bound to expand. When he's done eating, he asks to see a picture of Akiho, but she pulls up one with yogurt spilled on her face, and it makes him feel uncomfortable. Later, a girl complains about not receiving attention from a guy she likes, so Akiho tells her to go commando to attract her crush. Hearing this, the girl freaks out and ends up tagging Akiho as weird because she's too freaky. As Akiho leaves the room, she wonders if Haru sees her the same way, but Haru shows up and asks to walk home together, which makes her happy because he's different from the rest. The following day, Haru tries to take something out of Akiho's hair, but she starts shaking because he touched her ear. Seeing this, he smiles because he's figured out her weak spot, but before he knows it, a guy shoulder bumps him into a kissing position with her. Akiho says her sprinkler isn't prepared for what might happen after they kiss, so she promises to make it up to him later. Later in class, Akiho notices that Haru looks tired, but his old friend, Aria, shows up and says it's because he spent the whole night on a certain orange website. She jumps on Haru, and it makes him feel uncomfortable, especially since Akiho is watching. Sensing Akiho's jealousy, he introduces Aria as an old friend and tells Aria he's dating Akiho. Hearing this shocks Aria, and she breaks down, revealing that she was previously intertwined with Haru in his bed. But he says it happened years ago when they used to wrestle. Aria also mentions that Haru recently took her home to smash, but Haru reminds her that he let her stay in his house because it was raining. While he tries to defend himself, Akiho gets more jealous because his reactions clearly show that he's close with Aria, but Aria makes things worse by taking out a milk candy from Haru's pocket and throwing it in her mouth.
Oh my.
After Aria walks away, Akiho leaves too, and Haru wonders if she is upset with him. Later that day, as he takes a walk to clear his head, Aria jumps on him again and starts teasing him with her airbags. However, he freaks out the moment he senses Akiho's murderous aura behind him. While he tries to explain himself, Aria makes things worse by saying she'll let him feel her plots after school. Surprisingly, Akiho says she wouldn't mind watching, and it makes Haru sweat bullets because he's unsure what Akiho has planned for him. Seeing this, Aria promises to leave them alone and stop interfering with their relationship. However, she forces them into a photo booth so they can have some pictures together, and Haru realizes she won't leave them alone anytime soon. The next day, Aria shows up again and gets her hands on Akiho's milkers, but Haru drags her away, telling her to stop getting involved in his relationship. But she claps back, arguing that the only reason he feels insecure about her is that his relationship with Akiho is weak. She advises him to clap Akiho, signaling that it will make him forget about her interference with his relationship. But Haru gives her the middle finger. However, Akiho buys into Aria's idea, so she texts Haru later to meet her at the gym's storage room. When he gets there, Haru grows nervous, fearing that Akiho has something freaky planned for him. And when he enters, he sees Akiho dressed in a hot costume, ready to tie him up and whip him to insanity. On the way out of school, Akiho thinks about making her relationship with Haru more romantic. She thinks about whispering in his ear to make him spill his juice, but when she tries it for real, she loses balance and falls on top of him. While recovering, she tells Haru that she is insecure about not being the perfect girlfriend for him. However, he tells her not to worry because he can see she's trying her best, and he's open to figuring out whether an intense relationship is good for them or not. Relieved, Akihiko shows her cute side and tells Haru she'd like to get closer to him before they visit Pound Town. However, all the blood leaves Haru's brain when he sees her like that, so he looks away to avoid clapping her on the streets. One day after school, it begins to rain just as Haru and Akihiko are about to head home, so Akihiko decides to walk in the rain because she wants Haru to see through her clothes. Haru insists that she doesn't have to do it, but she gets carried away when a couple walks past them, sharing an umbrella. She wishes she could share one with Haru so she'd get to hold hands with him on the way home. But when Haru takes out an umbrella, she becomes nervous and tells him she's not prepared yet, so Haru ends up thinking she doesn't like sharing an umbrella with someone else and puts his away. When Haru gets home, he gets worried about Akihiko and tries texting her to see if she's okay. Before he can, his younger sister, Kana, enters the room and starts getting clingy with him, thinking he gets lonely when they're not together. Haru ignores her and tries texting Akihiko, but Kana peeks at his phone and jokingly asks if Akihiko is his girlfriend or something. When Haru confirms it, Kana grows shocked because she's always seen herself as the #1 chick in her brother's life. Thinking about it, Kana assumes Haru didn't tell her about his relationship because he thought she'd be jealous, so she tells him she's cool with it, as long as she remains the cutest to him. Haru accepts her conditions since he has no choice and gives her a gentle head pat to make her feel better, but her mood shifts when Haru receives a call from Akihiko. Pissed, she leaves the room and eavesdrops on Haru's conversation, growing jealous when she notices how familiar he's become with Akihiko. The following day, she shows up in Haru's class, trying to find out who Akihiko might be. When Haru sees her, she fumbles an excuse to cover her reason for being there, but she makes it obvious that she's after Akihiko. Speaking of the devil, Akihiko shows up, and Kana becomes speechless when she sees how pretty Akihiko is. After she's introduced to Akihiko, she starts mentioning things she's done with Haru to prove that she's closer to him, and what she says makes Akihiko assume they've been intimate before. All Akihiko can picture in her mind is Kana climaxing from Haru's sausage, and she freaks out when Haru tries to give Kana another head pat, thinking it might lead to them clapping or something. Haru tells her it's not what she thinks, and he spends the next hour explaining his relationship with his sister. After listening to him, Akihiko finally understands that she was just overthinking things and apologizes for going too far. All the while, Kana eavesdrops on their conversation and gets jealous again when she sees that they're getting along. She gets fed up and reveals herself, demanding to spend some quality time with Haru. Hearing this, Haru tries to explain that he can't leave Akihiko by herself, but Kana refuses and grabs him, accidentally pushing Akihiko to the ground. Although Akihiko doesn't read any meaning into the push, Kana feels bad about it and walks to a corner in shame. Haru notices and talks to her, so she opens up and apologizes for what she did. She also apologizes to Akihiko, who tells her they're cool and says she looks forward to becoming friends with her. The following day, Akihiko arrives at school and announces a campus-wide cleanup, which will last the entire weekend. As she says this, her classmates start grumbling because they already have plans for the weekend, but they change their minds when Akihiko promises to send them her unplotted pictures if they show up. The following day, the guys at school and even some from other schools show up to join the cleanup. While at it, Akihiko notices a few guys throwing away books that are still in good condition. One asks the other why he's doing it, and he says he just likes new books, so his friend jokes that he changes girlfriends the same way. Hearing this, Akihiko feels bad, thinking Haru might dump her when he gets bored of her. But when Haru shows up and tells her it's hard for him to throw away things he's emotionally attached to, her mood shifts, and she tells him to stick with that mindset. The following week, Akihiko watches a show about a chick giving her boyfriend a homemade meal at school, so she decides to prepare a meal for Haru. When it's break time, she refuses to give Haru what she cooked because she knows he'll die the moment he tastes it. Coincidentally, Aria shows up with a home-cooked meal, and since it smells amazing, Akihiko gets on her knees and begs her to teach her the secrets of the kitchen. She takes things a bit too far when she grovels on Aria's skirt, so Haru looks away to avoid colonizing on top of their faces. After school, Haru joins Akihiko at Aria's house and watches as Akihiko takes cooking lessons from her. At first, everything goes smoothly, and Akihiko follows along until she suddenly finds herself learning how to give a sloppy toppy without teeth. Seeing this, Haru walks away and cracks a quick one in the toilet. But when he returns to the kitchen, he overhears Akihiko making happy sounds and starts wondering if they're playing a game of rock, paper, scissors without the rock and paper. He quickly snaps out of it when he realizes Aria is just teasing Akihiko. Soon, Akihiko finishes cooking the meal with Aria's help and gets excited because it's the first time she hasn't blown up a kitchen while cooking. Haru looks forward to having a bite, while Aria gets excited that they'll eat together since it's been a while since she shared dinner with anyone. When the meal is served, Haru digs in immediately, and Akihiko watches closely to see his reaction. To her shock, Haru likes it, and she gets even more excited because it's the first time someone not in a grade has complimented her cooking. For dessert, Aria suggests bananas coated with lots of yogurt and a suitable chest for them to be served on. Haru pictures this in his head and realizes he's going to become Sir Kumsalat if something like that happens, so he says no to dessert. Instead, he tells Aria he'll give her his banana and turns around to wipe it good and clean for her to eat.
Yeah, boy.
Seeing this, Aria gets the wrong impression and faints when she sees his banana, but when she realizes it's just a normal one, she peels it and throws it down her throat in one go. About 5 minutes later, 2 bananas go missing, and Haru wonders if someone ate them since there are no peels anywhere. Aria comes out looking a bit happier than usual, but Haru reads nothing into it since it's already late and he needs to leave. He bids farewell to Aria and heads out with Akiho, only to find that it's raining again. This time, Akiho has an umbrella with her, but since Haru has his, she hides hers so she can share his and use it as an excuse to hold hands. One Saturday, Akiho tells her father, Natsuo, that Haru is coming over, but the news shocks the old man because it's the first time Akiho has ever brought a guy home. He almost gets a heart attack just thinking about it, and becomes even more nervous when he learns that Haru will be arriving soon. Seeing his reaction, his wife, Fuyumi, tells him to calm his nerves by taking a walk outside, and he agrees. As for Akiho, she volunteers to get supplies for lunch, while Fuyumi decides to stay home until Haru shows up. A while later, Fuyumi finishes up in the kitchen and decides to flip through Akiho's photo album. Seeing her daughter as a little girl stirs a nostalgic feeling in her, especially since Akiho's now at the age where she's bringing boys home. But before she can think too much about it, the doorbell rings and it's Haru. At the door, Haru is nervous, wondering if he showed up too early, but when the door opens, he mistakes Fuyumi for Akiho because they look so much alike. He's shocked when he realizes Fuyumi is actually Akiho's mother and a bit hurt knowing he's missing out on all that milk. When he asks about Akiho, Fuyumi tells him she's out getting supplies and that it's just the two of them in the house, meaning she can entertain him until everyone returns. Hearing this, the word entertain translates into multiple freaky meanings in Haru's mind, but he calms himself down, believing Fuyumi is just a decent parent. Inside, everything goes smoothly as she serves him a warm black tea to help him relax, but suddenly, she hits him with a question about how many rubbers he has on him. Shocked, Haru wonders if Fuyumi is the type of stepmommy that always gets stuck in the fridge. However, Fuyumi claims she only asked because she's looking out for her daughter and doesn't want Akiho getting pregnant anytime soon. Curious, she asks Haru if he has any siblings, and he tells her he has a younger sister. Hearing this makes Fuyumi wonder if it's about time she gave Akiho a little sister, so she asks Haru which positions are best for conceiving a girl. Stunned, Haru tells her he has no experience with anything like that and quickly points to a photo album to change the subject. Meanwhile, Natsuo keeps close tabs on them from outside the window, trying to make sure Haru isn't the type who's into hot married women. Inside, Haru flips through Akiho's old photo album and sees pictures of her as a youngster. He notices that most of Akiho's pictures show her reading books, but he's left speechless when Fuyumi confirms the books were all freaky. It makes him wonder if Akiho's entire family started the Alabama 19 pandemic.
We listen and we don't judge.
But even Natsuo recalls that Fuyumi was always the weird one when it came to parenting Akiho. Years ago, when Akiho could barely walk, she tore a piece of paper she was drawing on and cried because of it. But Fuyumi told her to cheer up because she'd cry even more when her cake got split. Another time, Akiho was playing with a teddy, and when she fell under it, the position made Fuyumi assume she was going to be on more missionaries than their local pastor. And once, while Akiho was eating, she accidentally spilled some of her milk oat sauce on her face. Instead of helping her wipe it off, Fuyumi told her to practice swallowing anything that spilled on her face and to say thank you to whoever spilled it. Presently, Natsuo thinks about all this and panics when he can't see Haru and Fuyumi in the sitting room, fearing they might be smashing. Luckily, Akiho shows up just then and finds Haru helping her mother out in the kitchen. When her dad walks in, Haru gets nervous and introduces himself, trying to get his approval, but the girls end up thinking he's into older men. After lunch, Haru thanks Akiho's parents for hosting him, and on his way out, Natsuo tells him to take care of Akiho. As Haru leaves, Fuyumi starts feeling bad that she wasn't able to entertain him to her satisfaction. But Natsuo tells her she did well. He reminds her that she felt the same way when it came to parenting Akiho and reassures her that she did a great job raising their daughter. The following day, Natsuo returns home and finds Akiho and Fuyumi having a heart-to-heart conversation. It turns out Akiho is going out on a date with Haru, and it shocks Natsuo when he hears about it, mainly because he did unspeakable things to Fuyumi on their first date night out. As for Fuyumi, she advises Akiho to take advantage of the movie date to get closer to Haru and jiggles her bells to give her some context about what she means. After their talk, Akiho decides to do some research on how to seduce Haru, and she finds a post saying that tilting her head at a certain angle will make her look hot. So the next day when Haru shows up, she tilts her head, and it immediately makes him fall for her all over again. On the train to the movie theater, they both notice a couple acting all lovey-dovey.
Oh my god! What is that?
And Akito makes sure to document everything so she'll know how to stir something like that with Haru. At the theater, Haru's unlucky enough to pay for a movie about intense plotting, while Akiho takes notes on all the freaky scenes. Afterward, she compiles everything at a restaurant and tells Haru she now has enough love techniques to use on him. Hearing this, Haru freaks out, telling her it won't be necessary, so Akiho assumes he doesn't want to smash, and the airhead starts regretting that he fumbled his only chance in all of Anume. After their time at the restaurant, Haru walks out with Akiho and thanks her for agreeing to go on a date with him. He tells her he had fun, but when he struggles to say what he actually enjoyed, she starts feeling bad because she spent the whole time taking sus notes in her writing pad. Seeing her mood drop, Haru wonders what's wrong, but when he spots a cherry tree shedding its leaves, he asks Akiho out on another date to see the cherry blossoms next Sunday. Hearing this instantly cheers Akiho up, and she happily agrees to go out with him again. But the next day, she faints from exhaustion because she spent the entire night thinking about the cherry thingy Haru mentioned. Worried, Haru takes her to the infirmary and tells Aoi everything, so Aoi agrees to take care of Akiho, under the condition that he claps her as payment.
Yes, yes, yes!
A few plotful hours later, Akiho regains consciousness, so Haru decides to pour some of his juice into her mouth to replenish her lost fluids. In the process, it spills beyond her mouth, and her clothes get wet, which makes Akiho demand the real deal. But Fuyumi shows up and ruins everything. A week later, Haru rushes out of his house and takes Akiho to see the cherry blossoms, only to be shocked when they arrive and find that the tree has already shed its leaves. Akiho nearly dies of frustration because she'd been looking forward to it, but Haru tells her they'll see another one at the same time next year. Hearing this stuns her because it means she'll still be in a relationship with Haru by then, and she tells him she'll definitely look forward to it. The following week, a hot chick named Rina bids farewell to her friends because she's switching schools. One of them tears up because she'll miss her, but Rina cheers her up with the hope that they'll meet again. As she departs for her new school, she looks forward to making more friends. So later that morning, she's introduced in Haru's class as the new transfer student. Knowing the school she came from, most girls start seeing her as a hotshot because she's rich. While everyone thinks she's just a normal chick, they're taken aback when she mentions that she likes to romp around with big hairy males. Consequently, anyone Rina tries to talk to runs away from her, except for Akiko, since she's the class rep Haru joins in too. And the first question Rina asks is if she can find anyone who likes to romp around with dogs. Turns out, the big hairy males she was referring to earlier were dogs. When Akiko finds out, she tells Rina she should have been clearer when she talked about her hobbies. After that, Rina talks about her previous school, revealing that it's an all-girls school. She adds that students there form close friendships with each other by sampling their milkers. And then proceeds to expose her milkers for Haru. As much as he'd like to do it, Haru senses Akiho's murderous intent and bails. He then briefs Rina that he's dating Akiho, but the chick finds it weird that they're a couple since she's only used to seeing girls in relationships. Hearing this, Haru suspects Rina might have a girlfriend, but she denies it, saying she's always been a single Pringle. She then jumps on Akiho's milkers, trying to initiate something sussy with her, but since the idea of being with a guy is new to her, she bails, insisting on getting the real deal. Akiho suggests they talk to an instructor about it, so all roads lead to Aoi's office, where Akiho begs her to teach Rina everything she knows about men. The request amuses Aoi, but Rina makes things worse by joking that Haru doesn't satisfy her. During lunch break, while other students stand in lines labeled A, B, and C, Rina asks Akiho which one she prefers. However, the degenerate loser thinks she's asking about the size of her milk jugs and says she's bigger than a C. Hearing this, all the guys freak out, including Rina, who mentions she wants to feast on all that milk. On the rooftop, Rina begs Haru to tell her about different topics that interest couples so she'll know how to bond with a guy when she gets one. He suggests having the same musical interests. Boldly, Rina tells him she listens to a lot of genres, including climax noises. At some point, she asks to go to the bathroom with him, believing it's the best way to deepen the bond with men, but Haru disagrees, even though Akito offers to tag along. Later, Aria shows up and introduces herself as the third wheel in his relationship. Watching Aria hug Haru gets Rina excited, and she also wishes to become his mistress. Shocked, Aria wonders what she'll do, so listens to Aria's case about her issues with getting men, and advises her to use the weapons on her chest to get what she wants. Out of curiosity, Rina asks for a demonstration, but Aria fails to jiggle her bells because she's flatter than a board, so she breaks down in tears. Immediately, everyone gathers around, wondering what Haru has gotten himself into. Akito tries to clear the air, but ends up completely demolishing her boyfriend's reputation. After school, Rina asks if it's okay to call them by their first names and they agree, so she officially becomes friends with the couple. Before leaving, she pecks them on the cheek and asks that they do the same, but they tell her it doesn't work that way. Later that night, after school, a teacher named Ikin sees Aoi leaving late, so she asks what Aoi has been up to. Ikin peeks at the room she came out of and finds two guys lying on the bed, as if they were drained or something. The next day at school, Haru sees Rina sulking and learns the girl has misunderstood what her friend from her former school had told her. Akito then calms her down and vouches to be her emotional support. Rina starts talking about her pets and how she always walks them in the park, so Haru suggests they go to the zoo for their next outing, and they decide to invite Shizuku. The next weekend, they show up at the zoo, and Akito tells Haru about how her mom drilled animal courting behavior and habits into her. Coincidentally, her mom and dad also decide to touch grass by going to the same zoo without realizing their daughter will be there. Meanwhile, the group stops by a naming pole for a young panda, and as Haru and Akito suggest casual names, Rina suggests the legendary lightsaber, but Akito immediately rejects the idea. They check out a bunch of animals and spot a dog with a bigger sausage, believing it's got golden jewels larger than Haru's. Sensing where the conversation is heading, Haru tries to make it as normal as possible, but the girls keep comparing the dog's size to his, so he suggests they check out a gigantic turtle. Unfortunately for him, the girls take him up on the offer, believing he's ready to go band for band with the turtle just because he lost against the dog. Meanwhile, Misaki and Kana also head to the zoo, and on their way, Kana teases her, calling her weird and stiff, but Misaki takes it the wrong way, thinking she's referring to her milkers. Akito's parents later arrive at the zoo, and her mom stares at an elephant, saying she loves them for their vigor and strength, which makes Natsuo, her husband, depressed. The next animal they check out is a young panda, and while Natsuo compares it to a human offspring, his wife interprets it in her own way. Kana, on the other hand, spots a monkey and tells Misaki that it has really strong procreating tendencies. At that point, Natsuo and his wife are also observing the creature, so the court-loving woman keenly studies it, and Misaki has a change of heart, believing breeding is a normal thing for animals. But as soon as she voices her interest, Kana shocks her by asking what it actually means to court. This makes her embarrassed, and she quickly storms off. Suddenly, the old couple spot a lost girl crying for her mom, so Akito's mom pets her, and her husband relaxes for a bit, only to be shocked when his wife tries to show the girl some monkeys romping. After walking around the zoo for a while, Natsuo sprains his ankle, as he complains about how he gets tired quickly due to old age. Fuyumi tells him he can get better by improving his technique. She then helps him to his feet and walks with him out of the zoo. On the way, he recalls spraining his ankle on their first date and how she helped him back then, so he tells her he's glad he got to marry her. As for the students, they leave the zoo, and Shizuku takes off with Rina, leaving Akito and Haru all alone. The couple heads home, and as their hands bump into each other, they try to hold hands, but just then, they run into Akito's parents. As both sides try to explain themselves, they spot a nearby hotel to let the geezer rest, so they book a room. One day at school, while Akito and Rina show Haru their newly purchased animal ears on the rooftop, they try to smother him, but he manages to escape. Later that day, Akito rants to Haru while they walk through the hallways about how her father gave her a personal alarm like a little girl. She considers throwing the device away, but when they walk past the bathroom stall, she gets an idea and excuses herself immediately. Judging from the sound of the device from outside, Haru can already guess what specific activity she's carrying out, and he fumbles the opportunity to join her. The following morning at school, Rina shows up excited to announce that she's finally gotten a cell phone. She's thrilled because, although her family is wealthy, they had deprived her of a phone, causing her to miss out on a lot of social engagement with her peers. Exercising her newfound freedom, she calls Akito, who's standing directly in front of her, and starts flirting, asking about the kind of plot armor she wore to school. Their conversation makes Haru feel uncomfortable, especially when Rina mentions that her plot armor allows for easy access. Later, Rina makes Haru show her how to take pictures on her phone. She then takes a couple of photos of them and starts rambling around, telling people she took facial pictures of him, and it makes everyone shocked, because they think Haru cracked one on her face. The following day, since the weather is bad, the girls complain about how hard it was to get their hair ready for school. While they're discussing, Rina arrives and joins in, complaining about her hair as well as Haru's, even though it looks almost the same. When they ask about it, she reveals that she was referring to the hair in her secret garden and not the one on her head. During school activities, Akito learns that Rina happens to be a good singer, so she asks to be her apprentice. Rina agrees to teach her, but leads her first to the bathroom to do some freaky stuff with her. Later that day, Akito links up with Haru and shares her concerns about being too clingy. She worries that it might bother him, but he tells her it's not more than he can handle. Grateful, she decides she'll try to be a girlfriend who can sense his feelings without him saying a word, so she urges him not to speak to her throughout the day. Back in class, Haru realizes he forgot his workbook at home, but Akito immediately shows up and hands him one. Next, she appears again when he needs a sharpener for his pencil. At some point, Haru accidentally drops his eraser, and Akio shows up suddenly to pick it up. Haru bumps her head in the process, making him swear never to drop his things again. During lunch break, she even goes as far as buying him the meal she assumes he'd want and offers to carry his books. Noticing how she's running all his errands, other students assume Haru's an abusive boyfriend and start looking at him like trash. After school, while Haru heads home, Akiho tells him she has a class representative meeting, meaning she'll have to wait behind. During the meeting, Sori, a class rep, mandates everyone to bring suggestions that could make the school a better place. But when Akiho makes her honest suggestions about legalizing OnlyFans models and encouraging cis conversations in school, Sori turns them down immediately. A chick named Sayo and the other executives also make their kinky suggestions, but Sori shuts them down equally. The following day at school, Akiho gets hiccups while hanging out with Haru and Ariya. Looking it up on the internet, Haru lists a bunch of things for her to do to get better, and while she does them, he can't help but stare at her jiggling bells. To make matters worse, the hiccups only get worse, forcing Akiho to attend classes with them. By the end of the day, Ariya, who had hidden herself in a locker to give the couple a jump scare, hears freaky sounds coming from them, so she loses her footing and ends up tripping. She then realizes that, rather than the diabolical things her brain had visualized, Haru was simply trying to pick Akiho's nose to trigger a sneeze, which would probably help her lose the hiccups. Luckily, the trick works, and Akiho sneezes away the hiccups, but Ariya unfortunately ends up catching them. Meanwhile, Kana and Misaki go shopping for snacks at a convenience store. While they shop, Kana sees a chocolate-flavored package and picks it without realizing it's a sausage raincoat. After a while, she tries to return it, but since she doesn't recall where she picked it, she just randomly drops it with other chocolate sweets. Misaki then finds the package and gets drawn to it instantly, wondering what a commodity like that is doing in the midst of sweets. She assumes it must just be a special kind of chocolate she has yet to try, so she purchases it and takes it back to class to show her friends, who are completely appalled by the sight. One morning in summer, Akiho drops by Haru's neighborhood on her way to school and waits for him so they can head to school together. When he arrives, Haru compliments her cute summer uniform, but she misinterprets it as him complimenting her plot armor because she had intentionally put on a transparent cloth just to mess with him. When they arrive at school, they notice a guy named Seiya getting all the attention from the girls. Seeing this makes Haru wonder if Akiho might fall for Seiya the same way the other girls have, but he brushes off the thought, thinking Akiho isn't a trifling hoe. However, when he steps out of the bathroom, shocked, Haru hides in a corner to get a better look because he finds it hard to believe what he's seeing. While he watches them, Ariya shows up, wondering what he's up to, but she is terrified when she sees his face because he looks like a zombie. Before she knows it, Haru grabs her and starts sampling her plots, asking if it's something normal friends do, but he snaps out of it when he realizes she's Ariya. Still, he goes after her, asking to know how far she would go in terms of being friends with a guy. And although he's doing it because of the thing with Akiho, Ariya gets the wrong impression, thinking he wants to smash. She calms down after Haru tells her everything that happened, but Rina walks in, claiming that friends can get intimate every once in a while. Hearing this, Haru's spirit dims because it means Akiho is a few inches away from getting pounded. For the first time, he mans up and walks up to confront Akiho and Seiya, and even Rina almost falls in love with him, wondering how he went from a loser to a Sigma male Giga-Chad in 2 seconds. Confronting Akiho and Seiya, Haru is shocked to learn that Seiya has been trying to be friends with other guys, but due to his popularity with the girls, they've kept ditching him. Since he noticed that Haru was the friendly type, he approached Akiho to get tips on how to get close to him. Hearing this, Haru gets relieved and agrees to be friends with Seiya, who stylishly makes his intention of digging into him known. After another class period, the students head out to make decorations and attach wishes to a huge bamboo tree in the school courtyard for Tanabata Day. The air is lively as everyone writes down their hopes. While Ariya hangs up her wish, Haru sneaks up behind her and tries to take a peek. His eyes widen when he notices her special wish is to at least reach S-ranked milkers before the end of the year. Flustered, Ariya immediately turns red and accuses him of snooping. Before things escalate, Rina suddenly shows up with her usual chaotic energy, proudly reading out her own set of outrageous wishes that somehow managed to outwear Ariya's. A few moments later, the group hears some familiar female giggles nearby. Following the sound, they spot none other than Seiya, Aura farming his way through a bunch of girls. He dramatically pretends to count the stars in broad daylight, claiming it helps him train his cosmic senses. Haru can't help but sigh at the sight, but before long, he decides to join in to tap into some of the nonchalant Aura himself. Seiya, whose wish for Tanabata was for him and Haru to connect their devices in a Diddy way, is pleased that they seem to be getting closer. Later, during P class, things take an awkward turn when Akiho catches Haru in 4K staring at her milk jugs while pretending to be deep in thought. She doesn't even seem mad, but instead smirks and tells him it's okay to look if he's that curious. Flustered, Haru stammers out an excuse, trying to act innocent, but it's way too late for that. Akiho then teases him, acting like she's about to whip them out just to get his reaction. After everyone finishes a round of stretching and warm-ups, the students are told to start practicing for the upcoming baseball tournament. Haru gives it his best shot, but after several consecutive, impressively terrible attempts at batting, he realizes sports might not be his thing after all. Still refusing to give up, he decides to keep practicing, mostly because he wants to look cool when the real tournament starts. Seiya, noticing his struggle, steps in and offers to teach him the art of wielding a bat properly. In the meantime, Akiho just finishes returning a couple of used equipment at a store, and on her way out, she overhears Haru and Seo making happy sounds from a corner. Shocked, Akiho sneaks up on them and gets the wrong impression when she finds Seiya kneeling before Haru, thinking Seiya is giving Haru a sloppy toppy. Confronting them about it, Haru doesn't make things better when he tells her he'll show her properly on the day of the tournament. When the day finally arrives, minutes before the tournament starts, Akiho gets cautious of Seiya being around her man. She decides she'll do her best to cock-block him while she searches for Haru. Finding him in the midst of her female contenders, she's more relieved as long as she knows he's not at risk of getting the Diddy Nugget specials. When the tournament starts, Haru, who's made to play as the batter, fumbles all his swings terribly in front of the hussy he had sworn to impress. The girls who came to watch him cheer him on, giving him the motivation he needs to finally land the next bat. However, the trajectory of the ball changes and dangerously swings toward Rina, who gets protected by one of her bodyguards, who suddenly spawns out of nowhere. When Haru attempts his next bat, he ends up redirecting the ball straight into Seiya's sacks, and the freak enjoys it. Panicked, he rushes over and kneels before him out of concern, but the sight passes a different message to Akiho and the rest, who give him the look. On their way back home, Akiho tells her she knows what type of man he is, so he immediately explains the situation with Seiya to clear up any misunderstandings. Akito is impressed to learn that he met Seiya in private and made him get on his knees just as an attempt to polish his batting skills and secure aura points from her. She also supposes the training paid off due to his extraordinary performance during the earlier match. At the end of it all, she tells him she's grateful to him for being her man and always pushing himself hard for her. While Haru and Akiho stroll through the park, they find a lost dog and decide to play with it. Akiho tries to offer the dog some of her cream-filled bread, but it ends up spilling on her hand. Strangely enough, the dog gets excited and licks it off her hand, finding a ball right next to it. They take turns tossing it, and the dog responds perfectly to Akiho, bringing the ball back. But whenever Haru tosses it, the dog keeps coming back with different diabolical items. Akiho then decides to test if the dog can do any special tricks, so she asks it to bay, expecting the same bowing and rolling that a normal dog is meant to do. To her surprise, the dog dives into her skirt, focused on eating her cake, and it makes Haru wonder just how messed up the freaky dog's owner is. Shortly after, Rina arrives and reveals that she has been looking for the dog for a while. Hearing this, the couple realizes she's the dog's owner and also why the dog is that sus. Later in school, a night camping trip is announced, and the students seem excited to go. While they make arrangements, Akiho goes the extra mile, making lists of things they need to do to survive in the woods. But when Haru goes through the lists, he realizes they're just fantasies of her being tied up, pumped, and dumped by him. Later, Saori organizes a meeting among the executives from each class to plan the camping more appropriately. She shares her ideas, but as expected, nobody listens. The other executives go on making random suggestions that are way different from what she planned, making her feel sad and powerless. After the meeting, the executives notice her dull mood, so they apologize to her and agree to go with her ideas, making her extremely happy. On the day of the trip, when they arrive and start to climb up the mountain to the campsite, Haru and Akiho realize that Rina, who has been pampered all her life, wasn't built for that kind of stress, so they decide to take a break before continuing. When they finally arrive and start to prepare their lunch, Haru accidentally cuts his hand with a knife. Noticing Seiya heading there to assist, Akito immediately rushes over and puts the bleeding finger in her mouth. When Seiya finishes his own dish, the aroma is so strong that nearby animals pull up for a bite, and most of them eye his sausage for dessert. Rina, on the other hand, prepares too much food, making everybody wonder who she's cooking for. When she finishes, she shares the food among her mysterious bodyguards, who suddenly appear from nowhere. Meanwhile, back in school, Aria, who had ditched the camping, stumbles into a guy who bears a striking resemblance to Haru from behind, and her reflexes kick in as she embraces him and starts to rub her blessings against him. When the unimportant side character turns back to reveal his ugly face, she immediately apologizes and leaves. Rumor has it that he never washed that cloth again since that day. On the other hand, Kana, who had asked Haru to help her get a specific souvenir from the mountain, nervously waits for feedback. When he calls to explain that he can't get the souvenir she wants, she insists, stating that she won't be settling for anything else. Over at Akiho's, her parents feel lonely because she has always been with them all their lives. This sudden break makes them realize how much she's grown and that in a couple of years, she'll be getting married and starting her own family. They then comfort each other, saying that as long as they're still together, they'll be alright, When evening falls in the mountains, the whole class is made to go through a test of courage, as concluded by the executives. When Akiho learns that Seiya will be among the people conducting the scares, she vows not to let Haru be alone throughout. Not wanting to risk losing her man to a fellow owner, clinging onto him, Haru feels a sense of masculinity and the need to protect Akiho, who clearly has a different motive as they advance through the woods. They first run into Sayo, who loses sight of her mission and starts panting at the sight of the two of them together. Akiho introduces her to Haru, and while they converse, the other three class executives try to use the opportunity to give them a jump scare. But for some weirdly calculated reason, the trap they plan to use ends up falling into Sori's plots, putting them in a rather difficult situation. Suddenly, they hear screams from Rina, who was also going through the test of courage. Heading over, they're shocked to meet both her and the students dressed as ghosts on the ground. Trying to find out what happened, the girls reveal that they were all touched by the same unidentified figure. Later, Aoi, who was clearly the one responsible for the touching, meets up with Ikchan and tries to get freaky with her too. But Ikchan shuts her down immediately. Meanwhile, as Haru and the two girls advance through the woods, they come across Seiya dressed as a raging Tarzan, and the girls freak out immediately. A little miscalculation happens on Tarzan's side, and the whole group ends up in a really questionable position. Sori, who's pretty much scared of the dark, tries to walk through the woods all by herself, but she runs into Haru and the gang in that same awkward position, mistaking them for a monster. She freaks out completely and faints on the spot. Reuniting with the others some minutes later, Haru and the others wonder why they didn't run into the creepy monster Sori was describing, unaware that they were the monster. While Sori sobs, Sayo comforts her and even offers to sleep together in the same bed. Knowing the kind of twisted person she is, Sori gets cautious, but Sayo explains that she's not going to do freaky she with her. If anything, she's the type of weirdo who prefers to watch people get intimate rather than get involved. Back at the hotel after the long night, when Haru asks Aoi for the keys to the boy's room, she hands him a Johnson and tells him to stick it in anything he likes, while the other guys stare at them. After settling in, the guys bathe in the hot springs, where the girls gossip about their relationships and the guys try to peek at them. Later that night, after everyone else has gone to bed, Haru invites Akiho out with him, and her heart beats really fast because she assumes she's finally going to know the feeling of having a sklong inside her. But to her demise, he just tells her to go sightseeing with him. One morning at school, Akiho notices some calluses on Haru's hands and immediately gets concerned. Haru quickly reassures her that it's nothing serious since he just got them from gaming all night and they'll heal up soon. Sori has come to realize that most of the students in the school have now been pairing up as couples. One day, she sees some students walking out of a dark class, so she assumes they must have developed plot in there. Heading into the classroom to inspect, she meets it empty but for some reason gets drawn to a particular locker. Opening it, she meets no one but Sayo, cramped up inside, and the degenerate creep hyperventilates from gooning too much. Turns out, Sayo has made it a habit to peek at couples doing freaky stuff, and she's all messed up because she saw all that the previous couple did. While Sori tries to interrogate her, some footsteps start approaching, and Sayo drags her into the locker to hide with her so they can watch the next couple in 4Ki cramped up in the locker. They discover the people approaching to be Haru and Kana. Haru and Kana get into a weird position where Haru makes a silly move and spills all his yogurt juice on Kana's face. The girls watching from the locker misinterpret it as something else, but before they can process anything, their hands slip into delicate places as their plots begin to rub against each other. Haru, who is looking for something to wipe off the yogurt he spilled on his sister's face, opens the locker and sees the two girls in that delicate state. As double standards would have it, they begin to blame him, calling him a creep for looking at them. They also accuse him of cheating on Akiho, so he quickly defends himself, stating that they're siblings. But surprisingly enough, that only makes matters worse as Sori twists it up and accuses him of cheating on his sister with Akiho. Sayo, on the other hand, gets more excited at the thought of siblings doing it. Sori excuses herself and heads to the bathroom, and after taking a massive dump, she cleans up and steps out like nothing happened. On her way out, she runs into Haru, and more determined to expose him this time, she accuses him of engaging in indecent relations and demands that he submit a written apology the following day. Haru tries to plead his innocence, but then notices the unexpected. Sori's skirt is stuck up to her waist, revealing her plot armor. Ignoring the fact that she's blabbing at him and not wanting to be called a creep for being there when she decided to flash the whole school, he cooks up a strategy to help her untuck it without her noticing. Apparently, his strategy fails, and she starts to look at him even worse, accusing him of all sorts of things. Akiho, who happens to be passing by, notices the commotion, so she draws closer to see what's up. Sori then explains the whole situation to Akiho, who is too busy staring at her plot armor to hear what she's saying. After Sori rambles on for a while, she eventually realizes why the whole school has been staring at her. She also realizes that Haru was only trying to help her earlier, and she gets really embarrassed. Then, like a knight in shining armor, Haru walks up to her and says a bunch of fancy gibberish while using the opportunity to lead her away from the crowd, making her more grateful to him, considering how she treated him earlier. The following day, Akiho attempts a foolproof scheme of wearing her swimsuit under her uniform so as not to forget it at home. As a result, she ends up forgetting her plot armor, so after swimming class, her punana is bare under her uniform. Haru then walks up to her and invites her to go to the school store. She wants to turn down the invite, but doesn't want him to realize something is wrong, so she agrees. Sayo, acting like a spectator, observes everything going on from the sidelines and stalks them to see how everything plays out. They head to the store and buy some chocolate bread. While Akiho tries to quickly head back to class so she can change into her sportswear, Haru invites her to eat with him out in the garden, so she has no choice but to agree. Haru notices how uneasy she's acting, so when they get there, he apologizes for selfishly bringing her along and also thanks her for coming along all the same. Akiho then relaxes and tells him about the issue with her plot armor. She announces her intention to raise her skirt to reveal the hidden treasure, and he tries to stop her. Then they notice Sayo hiding in the bushes and breathing really hard like a dog in heat. Later, Haru finds out that, unlike himself, Akiho seems to be really flexible. He can't help but fantasize about how effective her flexibility would be, especially when they're getting involved in some spicy action. He also notices that Rina is even more stiff than he is, so for a second, he's grateful he didn't choose her. After gym practice, Akiho decides to return the equipment they used to the storage room, and Haru and Rina both volunteer to assist her. In the storage room, after they finished, while they head out, Rina trips over a volleyball net and gets her milk jugs tied up like a Christmas present. Haru and Akiho then step in to help her get untangled. But while they help, the gym instructor assumes all the students have left, so she locks the door. The girls immediately start to panic, each of them clinging on to Haru while they rub their plots on him. They then get saved by Rina's guards, who break in to rescue her. Over the weekend, a freaky doll gets sent to Haru's house from an anonymous sender, which he clearly knows is one of the girls. Early one morning, Haru receives a call from Akiho, who tells him her father has been rushed to the hospital after using up all his strength while smashing her mother the previous night. Disappointed at the self-inflicted damage, he asks her to send his regards as he hangs up the phone. Shortly after, he gets approached by Aria, who seems quite pleased to see him. She teases him about being all by himself and tries to seize the opportunity to do freaky stuff with him right there in the open. But when Haru makes a move, she turns all red. Together, they head to a shopping mall where Aria starts to try on some clothes. At some point, she calls Haru into the dressing room to help her with the hook of a particular dress, and when he gets there, he meets her plot armor unhooked while she stares at him hungrily. Shocked, he yells at her and steps out. After a while, she tells him to come along with her to a different section and watch her try on some swimsuits. Haru tries to refuse, but she persuades him and forces him to come along with her. Getting there, she gets completely humiliated by the staff who size her up and hand her in a cup plot-sized swimsuit. Haru then teases her as he watches her confidence fade out like Roddy Ricch's music career. It doesn't take long for Aria to get back to her usual behavior, and this time, she's even more energetic than she was earlier. Haru loses her for a bit, and then finds her staring at some sets of sausage raincoats. She even offers to buy a pack, but Haru drags her out immediately. They then head to a food court to have some lunch and are served some spicy curry, spicy enough to make Haru's face turn red from just a bite. Aria teases him about it, calling him a youngster, which he obviously despises. She even goes further to point out that he will always be a snotty-nosed brat to her. Rather than taking the rage bait, Haru decides to glaze her and compliment her cooking skills, telling her even Sanji wouldn't be able to stand beside her in a shokugeki, and she ends up turning all red too. Later, Aria persuades Haru to go see a movie with her, and based on how closely she clings to him, they get mistaken for a couple at the entrance. After the movie, while they head home, Aria invites Haru over to her house, but he turns down the offer, telling her she has already drained him enough for the day. Not one to give up easily, Aria promises to make him a delicious dinner, but he still doesn't seem interested. She then takes it up a notch, telling him her parents are out of town and they'd have the whole house to themselves. Seeing how he can use the opportunity to shaboing with her, Haru agrees to come over. Later that night, when he arrives, he hears a scream coming from Maria's room, so he rushes there to see what's up. Getting to the room, he is shocked to see her hands and legs both handcuffed. He immediately assumes it was a robbery, but Aria reveals that she was trying to get more creative with her gooning when she lost the keys to the handcuffs, making him wonder just what on God's green earth she is. He agreed to help her look for the handcuffs, but she stops him, telling him she wants to pee and practically forcing him to take her to the bathroom. While she does her business, Haru leaves to try to look for the keys, but for some reason she can't find them anywhere. Coming out of the bathroom, Aria brushes off the topic and gets him to make some dinner. After the dinner, she makes him brush her teeth as well. Like that's not enough, she also makes him take her back upstairs to her room, where they both reminisce about the times they spent growing up together. She thanks him for always being kind to her and leans in for a hug, so Haru pushes her away. He then notices the keys he has been looking for in her back pocket and realizes that the whole arrangement of things was a setup. The following morning at school, Akiho overhears Haru's conversation with Aria, where he asks for her assistance in his cooking class later that day. Apparently, Aria has a couple of other things to do around that period, so she turns down the offer. Akiho, seeing it as a chance to be a reliable girlfriend, tells him she'd be willing to assist. During the class, she strictly follows the procedure from a professional cookbook, but still ends up making a burnt sacrifice that even the gods would get food poisoning from.
My God, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
While she beats herself up for the failure, Seiya shows up to show Haru how to peel some potatoes, but due to her twisted mind, Akiho misinterprets it as them practicing boys' love. She ends up burning the class curtains in the process, while Akiho brainwashes herself into believing that her demon-possessed meal tastes like Starbucks Chicken Capri's panini. Rina, unluckily, shows up at that exact moment and offers to taste it. She tries her best to act like the food doesn't taste so bad, but ends up collapsing before she can make it to the door. Akiho gets sad and is about to throw the rest of the food out, but Haru stops her and offers to eat it. She rejects his offer, claiming he could end up in the same miserable state as Rina, but Haru points out that if such happens, then he'd be happy to put himself in her care. Hearing this, Akiho explodes with happiness. Later, after closing hours, Haru runs into Akiho and Aria in the hallway, joining in on their discussion. He is shocked to learn that they've been trying to guess the OnlyFans creators he jerks it to. Not relenting, he invites them to come over to his room sometime so he can show them in person. Haru falls asleep in class and has a dream where Akiho is way different. She dresses like a normal girl and goes on dates with him to do lovey-dovey stuff like a normal girl. She even confesses her love for him and tries to kiss him. Then he suddenly wakes up and sees a girl's plots right in front of his eyes, sending some signals down to his Johnson. Catching him in 4K, Akiho confronts him but tells him that, as his girlfriend, it is her duty to prevent anybody from knowing that he's lacking, so she urges him not to stand up. During lunch break, Haru tries to study for the midterms, but his brain refuses to cooperate. Every formula he reads just turns into the name of a cornstar. Akiho notices his frustration and decides to assist, but her ways of teaching are sus as she makes him substitute each algebraic function with body parts. He dismisses her teaching methods and later meets up with Seiya, who also seems quite knowledgeable, and asks for tutoring help, but Seiya tells him he'd only be willing to help when he has a diddy call. He tries to ask Rina, but notices a bunch of other students fawning over her already. On his way back to class, he runs into Kana and her friends, Misaki, who claim to have issues understanding the freaky parts of biology. They ask him to tutor them, and the same guy whose grades need life support agrees with full confidence. After school, Haru finds out that, for some reason, Misaki would not be able to pull up for the study session. Kana sees it as an opportunity to go on with her Oniya-chan fantasies with Haru. While they're about to begin, Kana tries to reach for the study book at the top of the shelf, but it's too pocket-sized to reach it, so Haru has to step in like a prince and sweep her off her feet to fetch the book. She gets embarrassed, but he just simply thanks her for being goofy as always. She then gets flustered and storms out of the room. Later that evening at the ice cream shop where Misaki works, she suddenly starts getting weird requests from random customers. Firstly, Aria walks in and orders an ice cream with a sussy shape. Next, Seiya walks in and orders a popsicle. Due to a promo in the shop, she tells him he would be getting an additional popsicle, and Seiya gets excited at the thought of taking two massive popsicles at the same time. Akiho later comes in and orders an ice cream shaped like a schlong. When she tries to eat it, some of it slips into her plot armor, but instead of taking it out, she takes sus pictures, which she decides would earn her a little change when she uploads them to her OnlyFans later. Haru then finally arrives and tries to make a regular order, but when he tries to describe it, Misaki misinterprets it as him trying to ask for her milkers, so she gets flustered and passes out. Later that night, she remembers Haru's request and wonders if she should have just whipped them out and told him to dig in. The following day in school, Haru sleeps through almost all their classes. During closing hours, Akiho tries to wake him up to head home, but realizes how deeply he's sleeping when he doesn't respond to her teasing about showing him her tig ol' bitties. She decides to sit next to him and stare at him, and after a while, she can't hold back the urge to want to do freaky stuff with him, so she tries to touch him. But Haru wakes up immediately, forcing her to pretend to be asleep. Haru then notices how adorable she looks, so he gently pats her head like a golden retriever. She flinches immediately, and he stops. Finding out that she has been awake the whole time, he asks if she is upset that he touched her without her permission, but she tells him it's cool, but still displays some kind of attitude. After a billion times of asking, she then reveals that she wanted to pat him first, but got too shy when he suddenly woke up the other time. Haru then grants her her wish and allows her to pat him. The following day, the school decides to do a sketch meet out in the scorching sun, and the students are expected to make random sketches of nature. While Haru meets up with Seiya to take sketches of a chopped down tree, Seiya engages in conversations about the kinds of things Haru likes to put in his mouth. And before he answers, Akiho immediately steps in and yanks him away. After trying so many landscapes and failing repeatedly, Haru decides he'd better look for a model and try drawing a portrait instead, He walks into Araya, trying to draw a portrait of Rina, and decides to join in. While he finally locks into the sketch, a mischievous breeze passes by and blows up the girls' skirts, revealing their plots. He tries to keep drawing, but the girls get too embarrassed to continue. Later, he explains the situation to Akihiko, and she agrees to be his model. They find a secluded spot where Akihiko agrees to freeze her facial expression and pose until Haru is done. When he begins, he's hit with a random memory gust about how he only used to stare at Akihiko from a distance before he had the guts to ask her out. He reminisces about the fact that she turned out to be way different from what he imagined, but even with that, he still loves her deeply. Little did he know that he was actually thinking aloud. Seeing how red she has become, he realizes that she had heard everything. He tries to take it back, but Akihiko surprises him by telling him she loves him as well. While Haru and Akihiko head home from a date one day, they stop by a toy shop and purchase some weird-looking toys for future use. All of a sudden, it starts to rain, so they're left with no choice but to crash at a motel. Getting to the selected room, Akihiko heads to the bathroom to take a shower, leaving Haru wondering how caked up she probably looks without plot armor. During her shower, he overhears her making some happy sounds, and his lil homie gets into attack mode. When she comes out of the bathroom, he notices that she has changed into a bathrobe, but still tries to play it cool. They both agree to get into bed to warm up.
Yeah, boy.
And at this point, Haru can audibly hear his heartbeat. Shortly after they get in bed, to Haru's surprise, Akihiko falls asleep before he can bring up freaky talk. Left with no choice, he falls asleep as well, but the next morning, they both blame themselves for throwing away such a golden opportunity as they head out. Strangely enough, when they get to the hallway, they meet an entirely different setting. It's just a wide empty room with a bed at the center. On a side of the wall, it is boldly written that their only pass out of the hotel is if they get freaky with each other, and a timer is displayed right above it. Surprised, they try to head back, but even the door they came in through disappears. A voice assistant then explains that they're in a simulation motel, and just like thousands of couples before them, they only get to leave after they participate. Harry straight up refuses, but the voice assistant threatens to crack him as a penalty. Several robotic hands appear and bundle him up with some ropes while a massive Johnson-shaped toy slowly makes its way to his back door. Unable to stand the sight of her man being pegged, Akihiko volunteers to tank it on his behalf. Suddenly, the freaky toy changes direction and moves towards her skirt, while the robotic hands tie her up and pull down her plot armor. The toy gets under her skirt and presses its head against her entrance, making her moan loudly. Not wanting to lose to a machine, Haru declares that they will be participating, so the machines let them both go. While he tries to help her untie her bondage, the ropes come off with her clothes, revealing the most amazing thing in the universe: natural blessings. He gets flustered and tries to look away, but Haru tells him to feast his eyes, knowing fully well what it'd do to his joystick. He hugs her immediately, and they head to the bed for the most diabolical clapping ever. Haru is about to pounce on her like a raging beast, but before he gets to connect his device to hers, he accidentally knocks off one of their bags. As a result, the freaky toys they got the previous day tumble out and beat them to the clapping. The timer in the room then stops, leaving them confused as the A announces that they've completed the task. Haru immediately tries to pair up his device with hers again, but the bed opens up, making him fall into a void, still in commando form. At the end of the tunnel, they suddenly meet themselves standing outside the shop from the previous day, fully clothed and with their baggage complete. Completely clueless about what just happened, they conclude that it must have been the wind, but they're both really grateful they got to experience a glimpse of heaven. Several days later in school, Aoi gathers Araya, Rina, Kana, and Haru, who have been failing health education tests, into a class for a study session. The trifling teacher then brings in Akihiko, the brightest student, to make them play a game she specifically selected. While Akihiko explains the terms of the game, Haru notices that it revolves around family jewels. As the only one in possession of man grapes in the gathering, he gets chosen as the target. From a nut-shaped vase Akihiko showed up with, the girls start to pull out random papers, which contain tasks they're meant to engage in. The first task selected by Kana instructs her to balance on the target's nuts. While the girls brainstorm creative ways to do it without crushing his family jewels in the process, Haru tells them to get serious, as he would not be participating. Ignoring him, the other three girls take turns to select theirs and discuss their vulgar ideas right in front of him. Haru then ends up tripping over the vase, accidentally selecting a paper in the process. Reading it, the girls get excited that there's finally a tournament safe enough for them all to participate in, as it states that they're required to knock down his bricked-up joystick. While they approach him, Haru, pretending like he has not fantasized about being in this kind of position, heads for the door, but is stopped by Aoi, who blocks his path. She tells him the only way to pass her tests would be to participate. She tries to propose a different game, but he shuts the door against her. The girls then surround him, telling him he has nowhere to run and that he must submit to their demands. That's the end of today's video. If you stayed until now, Comment down below on who was more giggity between Akiho and Rina. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want me to post unplotted. But don't forget to check out the next video with lots of hand lotion. It might just be your new favorite anime recap. Stay focused, peace.